My name is Evan. I'm 48. We lived just outside Fort Collins, Colorado. A place where the wind always smells like dry pine and distant snow. Our house sat at the edge of a dying meadow, the kind of land realtors call full of potential, and most people drive past without seeing. But I saw it. It was the first thing I bought after my divorce, and I made it mine. Not through decorators or contractors, but with torn hands, months of sweat, and quiet mornings with lumber stacked like prayer books in the garage. When Melissa and her 2 kids moved in, Ryan and Chloe, the place had been ready for them. I'd sanded and stained the floors myself, rewired the basement to make space for Chloe's dance mirror, installed a double oven so dinner could happen fast between school pickups and late-night calls. Everything was intentional. Everything had a purpose. I never asked for praise, never expected a ceremony. I thought that if I gave enough, they'd feel it. Melissa had been distant at first. Not cold, just distracted. I didn't press. She was juggling 2 teenagers and a part-time marketing job that paid less than it demanded. I thought I could make her life easier. Not win her over, not replace anyone, just make things function. That's what I've always been good at. Chloe was polite, never warm. She smiled when spoken to but kept a layer of glass between us. Ryan was sharper, already 16 when they moved in, already too old to bend without cracking. He hated everything, and he made sure I knew it. The town, the school, the house, the fact that his mom was sharing a bed with someone who wasn't his father. Still, I tried. I drove Chloe to recitals when Melissa had meetings. I helped Ryan with his calculus homework. I upgraded our internet so he could stream his games. I watched YouTube videos late into the night just to learn how to fix the exact graphics card he wanted for his birthday. And when I finally found it, I drove 2 hours to pick it up from a reseller in Greeley. He unwrapped it, said, "Cool," and walked away. It didn't matter. Or I told myself it didn't. You do what's needed. You stay steady. That's how I was raised. My father didn't tell me he loved me. He showed it by showing up. By working double shifts and driving us to church even when he hadn't slept. I thought that kind of presence meant something, that it passed down. But presence without welcome is just haunting. There were moments early on when I thought maybe the cracks were mending. Like the night Chloe called me from a slumber party because the mom forgot to serve dinner and she was hungry. I drove 20 minutes and brought her food. She didn't thank me, but she didn't ignore me either. That was enough back then. Or when Ryan asked if I could teach him how to change a tire, and for 2 hours in the garage we worked side by side. No sarcasm, no sulking, just rubber, tools, and the hiss of compressed air. I went to bed that night thinking maybe things had turned. But you learn eventually. One warm day in November doesn't mean winter's over. I don't know when I realized I wasn't in the family, just orbiting it. Maybe it was the way Chloe introduced me to her friend as Melissa's husband, not my stepdad. Or the way Melissa still referred to decisions as what's best for the kids, never us. Maybe it was the silence that followed every effort. The way they treated my work like air, invisible until it disappeared. I became the noise behind the wallpaper, necessary, but not noticed. Still, I kept at it. I paid the mortgage, took care of the bills, mowed the yard, replaced the filter in the furnace. Showed up to every parent-teacher conference even when Ryan slouched in the back row with his hood up and wouldn't look at me. Melissa let it happen. She didn't join the disrespect. She just never corrected it. She let it roll. And over time, I started to believe that maybe this was what a stepfather was, a man-shaped tool, placeholder, something to be tolerated, something to be used. And then came the dinner. It was a Thursday night, just us 4. I'd made meatloaf from scratch, used Melissa's mom's old recipe even though it had too much ketchup and never browned right. Chloe picked at her beans. Ryan had his phone face up on the table, thumbs darting. I asked him gently to put it away. He didn't answer, just smirked. I asked again. That's when it snapped. He stood not fast, not loud, but with purpose. The chair scraped behind him. The air changed. He lifted his plate, walked to the sink, and threw it. Hard. It hit the porcelain and exploded. Bits of ceramic and food sprayed across the counter, hit the floor like shrapnel. Chloe flinched. Melissa didn't move. And then Ryan said it, quiet, bitter, clear. "You're not my dad. You're a damn wallet. A handyman. Nothing more." There it was. Every word I'd pretended not to hear. Every suspicion I'd filed away for the sake of peace. Every bruise I'd written off as growing pains, spoken clean. He walked out of the room. Didn't run. Didn't shout. Just dropped the truth like a knife on the table and left it there. And then Melissa turned to me. Her face was unreadable. Not angry. Not upset. Just tired. She said, "Don't bother the kids. You're making this harder than it needs to be." Not "Ryan, apologize." Not "that was out of line." Not "we need to talk." Just that. Just a verdict. Don't bother them. Don't make waves. Don't be more than you're allowed to be. I didn't reply. Couldn't. There was meatloaf on my plate. I took another bite. I chewed. I swallowed. Tasted like drywall. Chloe kept scrolling. Melissa sipped her wine. The kitchen hummed with the refrigerator's low whine. Nobody spoke. That's when I laughed. Not loud. Not forced. Just a breath through the nose, dry and bitter. Because something in me finally clicked. I wasn't part of the family. I was a function, a utility, a piece of machinery. And the moment I stopped working or speaking, they could keep going without me like I'd never been there at all. That was the end of the conversation. But not the end of the story. I didn't shout. I didn't slam a door or throw back my chair. I just finished eating. Swallowed the last bite of food I would ever prepare for them. Chewed until my mouth felt clean of the taste of that family. Then I picked up my plate, rinsed it, set it in the dishwasher. I wiped the counter, swept the shards of Ryan's tantrum into the trash. There was nothing left to say. Not to them. Not anymore. I walked down the hall to my office, shut the door, and sat. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. It was the calmest I'd felt in months, maybe years. That was the night I made the only real decision I ever made in that house. And I made it alone. It started with the deed. That house I built, wired, insulated, landscaped, was still in my name. But months ago, Melissa had asked if we could share the paperwork for simplicity. At the time, I said yes. I thought we were building something. I thought it meant trust. I thought we were a team. That night, I opened the county assessor's website and filed a name change. Primary resident, Melissa and Withers. The system let me reclassify the property without fully transferring ownership. But that wasn't enough. I opened a new tab, my bank login. I removed the mortgage from autopay, disabled the backup account, changed the mailing address to Melissa's email. Took 10 minutes. Then the utilities, gas, electric, water, internet. One by one, I clicked through the portals and initiated service transfers. Where there were shared names, I removed mine. Where my card was linked, I replaced it with hers. If the company didn't allow full transfer, I canceled the service outright. Let her restart it herself. I'd done enough hand-holding. By midnight, the only name linked to that house was hers. No threats, no farewell letters, no theatrical goodbye. Just subtraction. Felt mechanical at first, like math, but by the end I felt clean. I shut the laptop, leaned back in my chair, listened. The house was quiet. Melissa's wine glass clinked in the kitchen. Chloe laughed at something on her phone. Ryan's door shut upstairs. Nothing had changed except everything had. They had called me a function. So I did what functions do when they're no longer wanted. I turned off. The next morning, I woke at 5 a.m. As I always did, brushed my teeth, made coffee, ate in silence. Melissa passed through the kitchen in a robe, barely looking at me. Her voice still soft, careful. "Can you pick up Chloe from practice later? I have a late call." I looked at her, and something in my expression must have changed, because her voice hesitated. I said nothing, just nodded. That was the last favor I granted. After breakfast, I sat at the dining room table with my laptop and phone. No explanations, just actions. I logged into our shared bank accounts. We had 3, one for groceries, one for house expenses, one for family fun, as Melissa once called it. All three were joint, her name and mine, but they lived off my deposits. I emptied them, transferred every cent into a private account under my name only. Not because I needed the money, but because I was done funding a life where I was invisible. Then I called the bank and had my name removed from every joint card. Ryan had one linked to mine for gas. Chloe's DoorDash ran through the house account. Melissa used the grocery card for her wine, her spa visits, her little treats after a hard week. All gone. 30 minutes. No emotion. Just keystrokes and clicks. I called my lawyer. She answered on the second ring. Evan, everything okay? I smiled. Better than it's been in a long time. I need to transfer some assets. Personal business. Can we meet today? She hesitated. We can do everything over the phone. So we did. The business I'd started on the side, the remodeling company I ran part-time, had been quietly growing. Contracts, invoices, vendor relationships. All under my name. Melissa once joked that it was just your hobby. That hobby made 6 figures last year. She never knew. That morning, I restructured it into a private LLC and rerouted the mailing address to a P.O. box she didn't have the key to. I called the accountant and pulled her off the contact list. She'd never been involved in the work. Just liked to brag to friends that her husband ran his own thing. Not anymore. By noon, the walls of their support system were gone. The invisible scaffolding I'd held up for 4 years. Stripped away. I still hadn't spoken a word to any of them. At 12:37 p.m. I got a text from Melissa. Did you cancel the internet? It's not working. I didn't answer. At 1:12, another. What's going on? Still nothing. Then a call from Ryan. I watched the screen light up. His name, his smug profile picture. I let it ring. Let it go to voicemail. At 1:43, Chloe called. Her voice was timid. The message short. I can't order lunch. My card saying declined. Is there a problem? Yes, Chloe. The problem is I'm no longer your unpaid father. By 3 o'clock, Melissa had sent 6 messages. All variations of confusion. None of them apologies. She still didn't understand. Of course she didn't. She never asked what I needed, what I felt, what it cost to carry them every single day without complaint. My wants were extra weight, something to be ignored until I dropped it. And now I had. Around 4 o'clock, I went into the garage, opened my toolbox, checked my inventory. There were still holes in the drywall Ryan had punched last month. Just a moment of anger. I'd patched every one silently. There was still that leaky valve in the guest bath. Still siding that needed resealing. Not my house anymore. I took only what I owned. My tools, my laptop, the framed photo of my father that sat on my office shelf. Everything else could stay. I wasn't leaving because I had to. I was leaving because I didn't belong. I packed the truck slowly. Melissa's car was still in the driveway. She hadn't come out. As I loaded the last box, she finally stepped into the garage. Her face was tight, confused, not panicked yet, not afraid, just inconvenienced. Where are you going? I looked at her, just looked. She crossed her arms. Evan, seriously, are you going to talk to me or just play these games? Games. That's what she called it. All those years of labor, patience, restraint, reduced to a tantrum in her eyes. A game. I didn't respond. I closed the tailgate and walked past her, back into the house. Picked up my keys. My jacket. She followed. What the hell is happening? I turned, finally, and met her eyes. You told me not to bother the kids, so I won't. She flinched. A blink, nothing more. But it told me enough. I wasn't serious, she said. It was just, everyone was tense. I nodded. Yeah, and now everyone can relax. She stepped forward. Evan, don't do this. I shrugged. I'm not doing anything. I'm just stopping. Stopping the giving. Stopping the carrying. Stopping the pretending. She didn't follow me out the door. As I pulled onto the road, I looked in the rearview mirror. Not at the house, not at the porch, not at her, but at the vanishing point of everything I used to believe. That if you work hard, they'll see you. That if you stay long enough, you'll be loved. That if you sacrifice, someone will remember. They don't. They remember what's convenient. They remember what costs them. They remember when you stop. That night, I checked into a hotel off I-25. Just a roadside place, clean sheets, working lock, no photos on the walls. The silence was different. Not empty, not cold, just mine. The phone buzzed through the night. Ryan, Chloe, Melissa, unknown numbers. I turned it over, face down, and closed my eyes. No anger, no sadness, just clarity. If I was nothing but a wallet, then the wallet could walk away. The phone didn't stop ringing. Not once. Not really. It vibrated itself hollow on the cheap hotel nightstand, buzzing like an insect trapped in glass. I didn't silence it. I wanted to hear it. Wanted to feel the weight of every call I was no longer obligated to answer. By noon, there were 87 missed calls. Melissa first, over and over. Then Ryan. Then Chloe. Then Melissa again, alternating numbers, switching apps, trying everything. After that came her sister, then a number I didn't recognize, then another. People who hadn't checked on me in years suddenly remembered my existence. The messages followed the same arc. They always do. Anger came first. Accusations. Confusion disguised as outrage. You can't do this. This is immature. You're hurting the kids. Then panic crept in. The tone changed. The sentences got shorter. The bank called. The internet's still out. Ryan's card won't work. Then bargaining. Let's just talk. We can fix this. You misunderstood what happened. That one made me smile. I understood perfectly. By the second day, the system started to break. The grocery account overdraft. The electric company flagged the transfer and suspended service until a new deposit was made. Melissa didn't know the passwords. She never had. She'd never needed them. Things had always just worked. That's the danger of being invisible. No one learns how to replace you. Ryan stopped yelling. The bravado burned off fast when the gas light stayed on and his phone stopped connecting to data. Chloe stopped texting entirely. I imagined her sitting on her bed, scrolling Wi-Fi error messages, realizing the house wasn't magic. Someone had been paying attention all along. Melissa finally left a voicemail. Her voice was controlled, careful, professional. The voice she used with clients when she needed to sound reasonable. Evan, this has gone far enough. I don't know what you think you're proving, but this is becoming a real problem. The mortgage payment didn't go through. I need you to call me. Need, not want, not please. Need. I deleted it. The bank came next. They didn't call me, they called her. That was new. The moment she'd never prepared for. Questions she couldn't answer. Numbers she didn't understand. Years of deferred responsibility arriving all at once. The house didn't fall apart dramatically. It sagged. Slowly. Quietly. Like something hollowed out from the inside. On the third day, I checked my voicemail for the first time. Just once. Ryan had left 6 messages. The first was angry. The second confused. The third quieter. The fourth almost calm. The fifth cracked. Why aren't you answering? He asked, voice unsteady. Mom says this is just a misunderstanding. You know I didn't mean what I said. I deleted that one too. Because he did mean it. He meant it when he said it. And he meant it every day after. Melissa tried again that night. This time she didn't sound angry. She sounded small. I don't understand how this happened so fast, she said. Things are complicated. Can we just talk? Complicated. It wasn't complicated. It was arithmetic. They had taken. I had given. And now the giving had stopped. That's all. By the end of the week, the illusion was gone. The house still stood, but it no longer functioned. Not the way it had. Not without a sponsor. Ryan wasn't screaming anymore. He was quiet, watching, calculating, learning the difference between confidence and dependency the hard way. Melissa still tried to sound composed, but the messages came later each night, slower, heavier. No accusations now. Just logistics, questions, dead ends. Still no apology. That part never came. I realized then that they didn't miss me. They missed the structure I provided. The silence of problems solved before they became problems. The luxury of never thinking about consequences. They didn't lose a husband. They lost a foundation. And foundations don't get thanked until they're gone. I stayed where I was. Another week. Another room. Another bed that didn't know my name. I didn't go back. Not because I was angry, but because everything had finally aligned. I hadn't been pushed out that night at dinner. I hadn't been rejected in a single sentence. I'd been excluded for years. I was just the first one to stop pretending otherwise. The house stayed with them. The debt. The confusion. The silence between them when the lights went out and nobody knew how to fix it. The silence stayed with me too. But mine was honest. And for the first time in years, honesty felt like relief. I didn't return to the house. Not once. Not even to see if the lights were back on or if the lawn had gone brown without me. I didn't need proof. I already knew what absence does. It forces people to see the shape you filled only after you're gone. Weeks passed. Then more. The calls stopped. The messages slowed. Not because things improved, but because they adjusted. That's what people do when support disappears. They adapt, badly at first, then permanently. Melissa emailed once. Long, careful. Written the way people write when they're trying to sound reasonable instead of honest. She said she'd been reflecting. She said she was sorry things escalated. She said the kids were confused and hurting. She never said she was wrong. She never said she should have defended me. She never said Ryan's words crossed a line. She never said she'd let me disappear inside her family without noticing. I didn't reply, because apologies that don't name the crime are just noise. I moved into a small rental on the edge of town. Nothing special. Quiet. Functional. Exactly what I needed. No photos on the walls. No expectations in the air. Just space. Just order. Just peace that didn't depend on my usefulness. At night, I cooked for myself. Real meals. Slow ones. I ate at the table instead of standing at the counter like a servant waiting for instructions. I slept through the night without bracing for arguments that never resolved. And sometimes, not often, but enough, I thought about them. Not with rage. Not with longing. With clarity. I saw the pattern clearly now. I had entered that house already erased. Not by cruelty, but by convenience. They didn't hate me. That would have required effort. They simply built their lives around me like scaffolding and never considered what would happen if I stepped away. Melissa didn't betray me in a single moment. She did it in 1,000 small silences. Every time she let disrespect slide. Every time she asked me to be patient. Every time she chose calm over fairness. She taught her children exactly how to treat me, by showing them it was allowed. Ryan learned fast. Kids always do. He learned that as long as he didn't cross her line, mine didn't matter. He learned that anger was excusable if it came from blood. That I was a role, not a person. A resource that didn't get a vote. And Chloe learned too. She learned to stay quiet. To take what was given. To let things work themselves out without her involvement. She learned that invisibility is safe. None of them were monsters. That was the hardest part to accept. They were just people who benefited from my presence without ever having to acknowledge it. And when that presence stopped, they didn't grieve me. They grieved the comfort. Months later, I heard through someone else that Melissa had taken a second job. That the house was on a payment plan. That Ryan had stopped talking about college and started talking about figuring things out. That Chloe stayed late at friends' houses because theirs, felt tense now. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing it. Just confirmation. This is what happens when a system runs on one silent part and that part is removed. Everything else scrambles to compensate. Some things break. Some things survive. But nothing goes back to the way it was. Sometimes I imagine Melissa replaying that dinner, wondering what she could have said differently. Sometimes I imagine Ryan hearing his own words echo back to him years from now, when he understands how much weight they carried. Maybe they'll learn. Maybe they won't. That part is no longer mine to carry. I didn't leave to punish them. I didn't leave to teach a lesson. I left because I finally understood something simple and brutal. Love without respect is just labor, and labor without acknowledgement becomes slavery. I gave what I had freely. I stayed longer than I should have. I endured more than I should have excused. And when the truth was finally spoken out loud, when I was reduced to a function, I listened. I stopped trying to earn a place that was never offered. The house stayed with them. The consequences stayed with them. The silence stayed with me. And in that silence, there was no confusion, no pretending, no waiting for approval that would never come. Just honesty. So I ask you this not for validation, not for comfort, but because the answer matters. If you were needed but never wanted, if your worth was measured only in what you provided, if the moment you spoke up you were told to stay quiet, would you have stayed?